Chapter 5, Police Management, Part 3. In this PowerPoint presentation, we're going to concentrate on one particular type of, I don't want to say new, but more recent leadership method. I mean, we can trace this back at least a few decades, but the concept is quality leadership. Sometimes you'll see it referred to as total quality leadership or total quality management. But regardless, this is something that American companies started to discover more and more in the last 30, 40 years, really taking a look at, in particular, Japanese companies, and seeing what they were doing in their auto factories and other kinds of factories and trying to bring that into the U.S. But quality leadership goes beyond that and has developed more. And your book actually has this list that I have here in the PowerPoint. But I just want to go over some of the key components, because this is really seen as a way, especially if you want to create more of a team environment, and you want to lead in a team environment, you want to be more of a coach to your workers. This is a particular management style that can be very effective. And so you see more and more police departments trying to adopt quality leadership, training their captains, their lieutenants, their sergeants in the methods of quality leadership, if not completely, then at least in part, to try to get more out of their subordinates, more out of their line level patrol officers, especially as more and more patrol officers have college degrees and want to work in this kind of growth environment rather than more of a command environment where I tell you what to do and you do it. This kind of leadership works more for innovation and more of that growth and learning organization, where we're going to learn from our mistakes and we're going to be constantly growing as an organization. So what are some of the elements? Well, first of all, as I said, teamwork. So if you're going to be a quality leader, and I don't mean that just in terms of are you a good leader, but in terms of quality leadership, the style, then you really need to be committed to teamwork. So you see the words here: believe in, foster, and support teamwork. So really, truly commit to it, try to grow it, and then continue to support it. As part of this, we said you see quality leadership really connected a lot with growth and learning organizations. And so a large part of that is seeing our jobs as problem solving. So if I'm a police officer, my main job is to problem solve. We figure out what the problems are. Maybe it's a crime problem. Maybe it's some other problem. It's not even a criminal issue, but it's something that falls within our jurisdiction, so to speak. We're going to work on it. We're going to work on this other issue. So constantly viewing ourselves as problem solvers. So this obviously is emphasizing thinking, learning from mistakes, giving people the room to make mistakes and not have fear that if I make a little mistake, I'm going to be slammed by my boss. Give them a chance to make mistakes, make them responsible. So if you make a mistake, own up to it, but we're going to give you the latitude so that you can take some chances to actually solve these problems and to be innovative, to take our organization to a higher level. The leaders here will seek the input of their workers. So they realize that their workers' thoughts and opinions and recommendations are valuable resources. So it's not that traditional leader who just views their workers as pawns who are unthinking, who have to be told how to do everything. But here, quality leadership says, let's figure out what their best skills are. Each worker is going to be different. They can provide things that can make this organization better. So let's actively seek their opinion. Let's encourage them to come to talk to us. Let's have a true open door policy. Come in, talk to me, give me ideas. And I'm even going to seek them. I'm going to actively request your input on these issues, on these problems that we're trying to solve. We want to know how the employees are actually doing the work. So go and actually figure it out. I was reading a book recently and it was talking about innovation, and it talked about one particular boss who had made tons of money in making different detergents and cleaning products and things like that. And so this particular CEO went to China, and they eventually became the biggest selling soap brand in China. And so the author of this book asked him, "How did you do that?" And he said, "By becoming a rice farmer." And the author of the book said, I have no idea what you mean. How do you go on to become one of the biggest selling laundry soap detergent manufacturers in China? You've cornered the market. You've made billions of dollars. How did you do that? By becoming a rice farmer. And the CEO said, because I found out how the soap was being used. We found out that the water was very hard in China, and that meant that if you really wanted to make bubbles for your detergent, when you wash clothes, you often had to go find one particular location that had really good water. And so you would take all of your clothes to that particular location. And so you'd buy whatever detergent they were selling there. And so he said, we figured out that what the real problem was the water. It wasn't the soap, but people were buying soap that was, was the traditional soap, but it was only working, and they had to bring all their clothes at a particular place, and so they weren't as often do their laundry as often. So if you could just figure out a way for them to be able to wash their clothes in their houses, you'd corner the market. And that's what they did. They made a soap that was very good for hard water, and it worked really well in the people's homes and with their own terrible water, their own bad water, and they cornered the market because of it. So by going and seeing how people were actually doing the work, now granted these weren't his employees, but you get the idea, the analogy. By going and seeing how the work was actually done, this CEO learned much more than he could have done by reading reports and scientific studies. The scientific studies are important, but you also need to go and see how work is being done. If you've ever watched the show Undercover Boss, I always laugh when I watch it because many of these bosses are so out of touch with their businesses, they have no idea how work is being done. And so when they go undercover, they actually find out how the work is being done, and they realize how they can make their business better. So ask and listen to your employees, find out how they're doing the work. You're going to get some valuable insight most likely. They're going to tell you what's wrong, if they trust you, what's wrong with the department, how you could be doing the job better. How do we, as a quality leader, you're constantly asking, how do we develop more and better respect between me, the manager, and the employees, and also even among the employees. So not just between management and employees, but also among the employees themselves. So this is going to be a major part of your job. How do we develop mutual respect? How do we encourage it? Let's have a customer orientation, if I'm a manager, towards not only our citizens, if we're police officers. Our citizens are our customers, but also our employees. So this is a little bit of that supportive supervisor style. How do I grow you? How do I do things for you? I'm here to serve you. That's my management style. Ultimately, I have authority over you. I can fire you if necessary, perhaps, but I'm not thinking about that right now. My job is, how do I make you a better police officer? How do I serve you? And so we often don't see managers that really put that foremost in their goals as one of their main goals and objectives as a manager. You don't see them putting it up there first and foremost. But those leaders who have done that, who are really truly interested in you, you probably would have walked over hot coals for them to do whatever they needed you to do, because you know that they would do anything for you. A real important one that we professors sometimes forget. Manage on the basis of the 95% of your employees, or for professors, our students, who are doing excellent work, or at least solid work. They're not the problems. It's the 5% who are usually the problem. Now, this may not always be true. Maybe you have a terrible organization and 95% are problem makers. But in most organizations, it's not that. And it's the same in the classroom. Even if I put the answers for a test right in front of you, the great majority of you would be honest and never look at them. It's the few that would cheat. So how do I take all kinds, when I teach on campus, I take all kinds of precautions to make sure people aren't cheating to try to catch them. Well, and I'm really focusing on the 5%. And so are we doing that as well? I'm sure you've felt it in some of your jobs. You got a few people cause a problem, so therefore the organization writes new rules that really clamp down on things that you used to be able to do. We can't bring our kid to work because somebody caused a problem a long time ago. It was never a problem before, now it is. And so now nobody's allowed to even let their kids come anywhere near, or whatever. Think of whatever example. Because somebody messed it up, now we're going to apply, instead of just dealing with that one person who messed up, we're going to apply it to everybody who's doing a good job. So we're going to really clamp down on your freedom. So that's a real danger. And a lot of people do it, and I do it. I admit, as a professor, I focus on the bad students a lot of times instead of the majority of students who are good students who would be honest, respectful throughout the whole class no matter what. I have to focus on the 5%, and we need to remember not to do that, that we could give freedom to those 95%, and they wouldn't let us down, most likely. How do we improve the systems and the process and examine processes to see if they're the problem? So maybe it's, again, not the people. So don't be quick to blame the people. So how many times have you had a coach that has done this? You don't know how to run this system. You don't know how to run this play. And they're blaming the players. When the real problem is the coach, because the coach never taught them. It was a bad system. The process was bad. So could that same thing be going on at work? You don't have the resources. You don't have the material or the training to actually do the job correctly, and yet your boss blames you. They expect you to make miracles out of nothing, and you can't do that. And so the good leaders are going to examine the system first, look at the process. Is there a problem there before they start pointing their finger at the employees? Avoid that top-down, power-oriented decision-making. So avoid that traditional style of decision-making. I'm the boss. I'm going to tell you what goes. I'm not going to seek your input. I'm not going to get your feedback. Here's what's going to happen. Just do it. We don't want that kind of leadership and quality leadership. Encourage creativity. So again, we want our people to be innovators, be tolerant of honest mistakes. So the key here is honest mistakes. If they failed because they were negligent or because they were lazy or because they just didn't care, then okay, yeah, they need to be hammered. They need to be disciplined. But if this is someone who really tried, they made an honest mistake, how can we use that as a teaching moment? How can we teach them how to be even better? Okay, yes, you made a mistake, but I'm glad that you tried. Now let's try to figure out what can we learn from that mistake? So are we tolerant of mistakes? Do we really encourage innovation and creativity? Or through punishment, through being intolerant of mistakes, we want you to take risk, but you make a mistake, we're going to slam you. Nobody's going to take the risk. Nobody's going to try. So we need to encourage that risk-taking and provide a safety net for mistakes. Be a coach. Be a facilitator. Find out, really get to know your people. Know what they're good at. Some people are, if you're talking about a hockey team, some folks are really good on defense. Some people are going to be the scorers. Some people are going to be great passers. They're going to be great for making assists, not putting the puck into the net. So how do we put those people together to make a great team? So how do we capitalize on everybody's best skills? How do we put them in situations where they're going to succeed? So we don't ask that in baseball. We don't ask that person who can only hit singles. We don't ask them to hit home runs because they're going to fail. So how do we find out what you're really good at and what situations, how can we put you in those situations where you're going to succeed? That's what we really need to be doing as leaders. And finally, develop goals with your employees and how to achieve them. So constantly involve them in that process of changing the organization from setting goals, from planning, all the way through execution. So all those steps of management we talked about in the first PowerPoint, let's involve our employees in all of those.